Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 891. 30 Seconds to Speak. That guy and his so-called unbreakable iron legs met Ethan's casual kick head-on. The sharp crack rang out, echoing across the battlefield and straight into everyone's ears. Those iron legs that had made him famous on the dark list did not shatter heroically or resist even for a heartbeat. They folded inward, collapsing like wet branches snapped underfoot. The smug expression on the man's face twisted instantly into pure agony. His mouth opened, breath drawn for a scream that never had the chance to fully escape. Ethan's leg, the one already driving in from behind, never slowed. Boom! There was a wet, sickening explosion. The man did not go flying. Under normal circumstances, a kick like that would have launched him halfway across the field like a rag doll struck by a battering ram. Ethan's kick was different. It was sharp, precise, weighted like a blade forged from solid steel and loaded with impossible force. The impact split the man cleanly in half at the waist. Blood and stench erupted together. 2 kills back to back in the space of a few breaths. The burning pressure in Ethan's chest eased slightly, just enough for his eyes to clear. He turned, locking onto the man fighting Beastie, the one already trying to edge away. Beastie surged forward at the same moment, pinning him in place, cutting off any escape. The man saw Ethan's gaze land on him and nearly lost control of his bladder. The 3 who had died were all his equals, veterans hardened by blood and reputation. How was this monster this strong? Everyone there was thinking the same thing. Pull back. Darknet screwed us. The intel never said he was this dangerous. Pull back how? He's too fast. Dozens of hunters scrambled backward in panic. Around 10 of them had never even joined the fight. Those still locked in combat found themselves unable to disengage. The blonde, blue-eyed woman, the leader of the German team, was still fighting the massive black dog. That beast had appeared last and killed one of theirs instantly. She had stepped in because she could feel its strength, but its defense was absurd. Her twin daggers might as well have been toys, barely leaving marks. Up to now, she had only been stalling it, keeping it from tearing through the rest of the group. Before Ethan woke up, they had the spirit artifacts cornered. They could have killed them quickly if they wanted, but greed had held their hands. They wanted the true forms forced out. Spirit artifacts were supposedly immortal, but if destroyed, the reborn artifact would return with no memories, little more than a newborn. Worse, spirit artifacts were usually timid. When truly cornered, they would summon their true forms, and when those appeared, their power multiplied explosively. That was why the non-combatants had been waiting on the sidelines, ready to jump in once the power spike came. What no one expected was that no true forms ever appeared. Instead, their master woke up. The instant Ethan burst from the water, every elite there had the same greedy thought. Grab him. Force out his spirit treasures. Maybe he even had more hidden on him. That thought barely had time to exist before Ethan's actions erased it completely. Now, murder and plunder were the last things on their minds. Even the dark net bounty faded into irrelevance. The only thought left was run. Some even thought that if they survived this, they would hunt down whoever posted that bounty and kill him themselves. Panic rippled through the crowd. Fall back to the Angel Squad. Someone shouted, already moving. Another voice followed, strained and desperate. That bastard wouldn't even help against one catfish monster. He's not going to help us. Still better than dying here. I'll pay for my life if I have to. We're all Darknet. It's about money, right? Angel Squad takes contracts. They want cash too. That one voice had a clear head. The rest seized on the idea and broke toward the Angel Squad's position without hesitation. Ethan noticed another battlefield in the distance and focused on it. The dragon of consumption was there, battered and retreating step by step. His opponent was an angel with pure white wings. Ethan's eyes widened. Actual angels? Weren't they from the mythic age? How are they still alive? Shock rippled through him, but as he studied those wings, a line surfaced from memory. Watch out for those feathered bastards. The last warning the monkey had ever given him. A warning that broke some kind of rule, punished immediately by endless heavenly lightning that smashed the monkey into the ground. Until now, Ethan had never truly understood what the monkey meant. Seeing this creature fighting the dragon made it clear. This was a feathered bastard. White wings meant a two-winged angel. He had seen four-winged ones before at the monkey's place, likely higher ranked, but the golden sword they carried was identical. Mass-produced gear. His gaze slid to the other 7 angels, standing motionless like ice sculptures, making no move to help. There was no telling how long the dragon had been fighting alone. That unreliable bastard was covered in wounds now, scales cracked and blood everywhere. Something shifted in Ethan's chest. The first time he had met the dragon, it had been arrogant to the point of stupidity. Later, it even tried to betray him, forcing Ethan to use 5-colored divine light to put it down. And now, here it was, beaten half to death, still holding the line for him. Guess the bastard was reliable after all. Ethan kept his eyes on that fight, but his hands never stopped. Every hunter still locked in combat died in a single blow. When the last body fell, he finally turned his attention to the blonde woman. In a flicker, he appeared between her and the massive black dog. His hand shot out as if it pierced space itself, no motion to track, no path to follow. It reappeared already clamped around her throat. She froze, certain she was dead. But Ethan held back. He did not crush her. He simply gripped her neck and spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. Who posted the bounty? I don't know. Fear burned in her eyes, but to Ethan, her answer sounded like stubborn resistance. Don't know? Then what use are you? His fingers tightened. Crack, crack. Her neck popped softly under the pressure. I'll talk. Death pressed close enough for her to feel its breath. One more squeeze and she would be gone. The moment the words left her mouth, Ethan loosened his grip. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. 30 seconds. Ethan looked down at her like a king passing judgment. His cold eyes fixed on the woman crouched at his feet. Chapter 892 Gold Against Gold. The woman remained frozen on the ground, Ethan's cold words hanging over her like a blade poised to fall. The problem was that she truly did not know. Even so, her thoughts raced desperately as she searched for anything that might keep her breathing. She looked up at him. I honestly don't know who placed the contract. She stopped mid-sentence. Ethan's presence shifted, turning sharp and glacial, and killing intent poured off him without restraint. Her pupils shrank to pinpricks as instinct screamed at her to keep talking. But I know how Darknet works, she rushed out. They collect payment up front and hold it in escrow. When the job's completed, the reward gets released to us. If Ethan cut her off before she could finish. Interesting idea, he said calmly. Using Darknet's own system against me? A faint smirk tugged at his lips. The woman's heart lurched as panic flashed through her eyes. He had seen right through her train of thought. Ethan rubbed his chin, considering it. Not a bad angle, actually. These pay-to-kill networks aren't exactly saints. Probably should be wiped out sooner or later anyway. Despite everything, Ethan was not some born psychopath. He had grown up under the weight of law and rules, a reasonably decent young man at his core. He did not harbor some deep, obsessive hatred for illegal organizations, but he certainly felt no attachment to them either. And they had come for him. He turned his back on her. Behind him came a wet, rhythmic sound. Slurp, slurp, slurp. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. The massive black dog stood there with its tongue lolling, happily lapping at the water, its posture relaxed and satisfied. Something about that expression felt oddly familiar. He opened his mouth to ask about it when a voice cut in sharply. Brother, the dragon of consumption can't hold much longer. Yaya's shout snapped his attention forward just in time to see the dragon's massive, 100-meter-long body hurled through the air by a colossal golden sword. The fleeing Darknet elites were already far away, clustered behind the angels. Ethan's spirit artifacts had not chased them. Not without his permission. The survivors wore expressions of stunned relief, half expecting death and instead finding themselves alive. Now, standing behind the angel squad, their confidence began to creep back. They knew what the angel squad was. Real angels. They watched the catfish-like monster battling one of them. Its sheer scale impressive, every movement steeped in sacred presence. That monster was clearly stronger than the spirit artifacts by a wide margin. Yet the angel appeared to be toying with it, just as casually as the hunters had toyed with the children earlier. The unspoken question spread through the crowd. Could these angels kill that terrifying kid? If not, they would still need to run, and then there would be nothing left to hide behind. Some already began thinking about slipping away. Bounties and treasure meant nothing if you were dead. But the moment they arrived, the 7 angels glanced at them. The contempt in those eyes was unmistakable, and beneath it lay something far colder. A chill sank into their bones, freezing their thoughts. Every single one of them felt it. Turn your back on these beings, and you would be dead before you took 2 steps. They had escaped hell only to land in a deeper fire. Bitterness flooded them. Before coming here, every one of them had felt invincible. Now their lives dangled from someone else's fingers. The reversal was brutal, but there was nothing they could do except endure it. Ethan, you little bastard. If you don't save me, I'm dead. The angel had noticed the shift in the battlefield and decided to end things. His gaze sharpened as the golden greatsword in his hands blazed brighter, its form expanding with terrifying power. The dragon of consumption's purple vortex dimmed, flickering weakly. Those dead, bulging fish eyes now held genuine fear. For a creature as proud as him, begging for help was an unimaginable humiliation. If death had not been pressing down on him, he would never have shouted like that in front of so many witnesses. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, then stopped short. An unseen binding force held him in place. He could not stray far from the white lake. His eyes narrowed as realization struck. He could not help. The dragon saw Ethan flicker forward and then freeze. He understood immediately that something was wrong. Above him, the golden sword carved an arc across the sky. All of its attacks carried a homing effect. No matter how you dodged, they would find you. The dragon had learned that lesson early in the fight. Now, facing this overwhelming strike, he had nothing left. Even Ethan's expression changed. The dragon was dead. Ethan almost looked away, but then something shifted. A faint golden light shot up from beside the dragon. Get the hell away from me! The dragon saw it first. His eyes bulged, those lifeless pupils nearly popping from their sockets, as he roared in rage, despair, and disbelief. His shout did nothing to slow the rising light. It's Goldie! Luna cried. Goldie was another of her impulsive names she had given this time to the fortune dragon. In legends, it barely existed as more than a concept, a manifestation of luck itself, a multiplier of fortune. It was said to be the perfect counterpart to the dragon of consumption, a being that hated conflict and avoided battle whenever possible, yet coexisted alongside him. The dragon of consumption had always dreamed of devouring the fortune dragon. Even he did not know why. It was simply a primal urge. And now, at the very moment of his death, the fortune dragon appeared, clearly intending to take the blow meant for him. Unacceptable. Boom. The fortune dragon's tiny body shot past the dragon of consumption and expanded in an instant, swelling to colossal size. It caught the falling golden sword head-on. That small, earthworm-like dragon erupted with blinding radiance as its form grew, becoming a majestic golden 5-clawed divine dragon coiling through the void. Dragon fire burst from its jaws and slammed straight into the descending blade. The moment that breath was released, the world itself seemed to change. Ethan's expression shifted sharply, and across from him, the angel's eyes widened with fury. No one had expected that casual, untelegraphed breath to warp heaven and earth itself. The angel had been holding his sword with one hand. Now his other hand snapped to the hilt, gripping it tightly as he drove it down with full force. Boom! Golden sword met dragonfire, gold against gold. And at the instant they touched, the blazing colors died, swallowed into silence. Chapter 893, Half a Day. At that moment, it felt as if the color had been drained from the world itself. Not replaced by golden radiance or divine brilliance, but by gray. Everything around them flattened into something lifeless, like a black and white photograph left too long in the sun, barren and stripped of warmth. Even the deafening clashes of battle, sounds that should have shaken the heavens, were severed mid-impact, leaving behind an unnatural stillness that pressed against the chest. No one could hear anything. It was not that their ears had failed them, but that sound itself no longer existed in this space. Luna's voice continued beside them, her mouth moving as she chattered on without pause, yet not a single syllable reached anyone. Not even Luna herself could hear her own voice. The silence lingered, heavy and suffocating, stretching far longer than it should have. Panic spread across every face, color draining as the seconds crawled by, each heartbeat feeling like an eternity under that oppressive void. Nearly 2 full minutes passed before the gray-white world finally began to change. Color seeped back in slowly, like ink bleeding across paper, spreading unevenly until shapes regained depth and life. With it came sound, rushing back all at once. The sudden noise was chaotic and shrill, and Ethan winced as Luna and the smaller ones screamed at the top of their lungs, half in terror and half in relief. The moment they realized they could hear again, they clamped their mouths shut, exchanging embarrassed and shaken looks. "Kid, what are you waiting for? Finish your damn trial, or we all die here." The dragon of consumption roared as he shot skyward, his massive form surging through the air with reckless urgency. His target was unmistakable, the fortune dragon. "What are you doing?" Ethan bellowed, his voice raw as he watched in disbelief. The dragon of consumption opened his enormous maw, descending like a mythical glutton finally granted his greatest wish. Ethan knew this desire all too well. The dragon of consumption had always dreamed of devouring the fortune dragon, and now the fortune dragon hung motionless in the sky, unmoving and unresponsive. Ethan could no longer sense it at all. Not its presence, not its vitality. Its life force had vanished without a trace. Across from them, the angel remained frozen mid-strike, sword held in a downward slash as if time itself had seized it by the throat. Both combatants were locked in that single instant. Then, just after Ethan's roar, the golden greatsword in the angel's hand began to crumble from the hilt outward. It disintegrated piece by piece, like sand scattered by an unseen wind, dissolving into weightless powder before vanishing entirely. The arm holding it followed, then the rest of the feathered figure, until nothing remained at all. In that same moment, the dragon of consumption swallowed the fortune dragon whole. Ethan's vision went red. His eyes burned, veins standing out as fury surged through him. "You son of a bitch!" he snarled as his teeth grinded so hard. "Oh!" The dragon of consumption's body twisted violently as the fortune dragon settled within him. His catfish-like form warped and convulsed, and from his throat burst a roar that was unmistakably draconic. This was no distorted imitation, but a true dragon's roar, ancient and primordial, as if it carried the weight of countless ages echoing through time itself. In the blink of an eye, his body transformed. The slick, ungainly shape vanished, replaced by a deep purple, five-clawed divine dragon. That purple hue did not last. Slowly, golden scales emerged, spreading across his body until his form mirrored that of the fortune dragon from before. Yet between those scales pulsed a flowing purple-gold light, alive and restless, as though every scale possessed its own breath. Damn it! Damn it! Two incomplete forms fused together. "I can't launch any attacks like this," the purple-gold five-clawed dragon muttered, speaking clearly in a human tongue. He raised his front claws, studying them with a frustrated scowl before lowering them again. "This will have to do." His gaze shifted, locking onto Ethan with a depth that made Ethan's skin prickle. "You've got half a day." With those words, the dragon twisted his massive body and positioned himself above Ethan and the others. Ethan didn't understand what he meant. His eyes were still bloodshot, his breathing heavy as he glared upward, confusion and rage twisting together in his chest. Dragon God, Nirvana Shield. Every scale on the purple-gold dragon flared with blinding light. The remaining 7 angels spread their wings in unison, their cold gazes fixed forward as they charged without hesitation. Yet no matter how fast they moved, they could not outrun that flash of gold. The dragon's body vanished in a single burst of purple-gold radiance, replaced by a rapidly expanding bubble of light that formed before everyone's eyes. In an instant, the barrier enveloped Ethan and the others. The angels' attacks struck moments later. One by one, 7 golden greatswords slammed into the surface of the bubble, each blow carrying crushing force. Bam, 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 the impacts rang out, yet the barrier did not so much as tremble. The energy-forged blades dissolved on contact, breaking down into nothingness as wisps of gold were absorbed into the shield itself. With each strike, the purple-gold light only grew brighter. The angels were left gripping nothing but the hilts of their weapons. They exchanged glances, unease flickering across their otherwise impassive faces, before slowly retreating and hovering in place, motionless and wary. Ethan's gaze sharpened as he studied the barrier. He could feel it clearly now. Carried the power of consumption. The purple-gold dragon was nowhere to be seen, which meant this bubble was no mere construct. It was his transformed body, a fusion born from the dragon of consumption and the fortune dragon. The dragon's final words echoed in Ethan's mind. "You've got half a day." That told him everything he needed to know. This shield would last roughly 12 hours. Watching the angels' attacks be absorbed, consumed, and converted into defensive power, Ethan understood that the barrier was effectively impenetrable. What he did not know was what would happen to the dragon once the shield faded, or what price would be paid for buying this time. "Half a day, huh?" he muttered. His bloodshot eyes no longer lingered on the 7 feathered figures above. Instead, his attention shifted to the milky white frozen lake beyond the barrier. Step by step, he walked toward it, each footfall leaving a deep imprint in the pale mud beneath him. When he reached the edge of the shield, he stopped. The purple-gold barrier stood less than half a step from the lake's surface. One more step would put him on the ice itself. He did not know that this lake forbade others from setting foot upon it. The thought never even crossed his mind. Fear simply did not exist in him anymore. He glanced back once at the hovering angels, then moved forward. The shield offered no resistance at all. Ethan stepped onto the ice. A sharp whoosh cut through the air as the milky white chelan snapped out of its death-like stillness. It shook its massive head and charged straight at him without hesitation. There were no elaborate feints or complex techniques. Just like before, its opening move was a raised front hoof, ready to kick. That kick had once been terrifying, fast enough to send Ethan flying with a single blow. Now, as it came toward him, it looked almost ordinary. Not because it was weaker, but because Ethan could finally see it clearly. Before, all he had perceived was raw speed and overwhelming power. Now, every detail was laid bare. The lifting of the leg, the gathering of force, the precise thrust forward, each movement resonated perfectly with the surrounding space, as if the world itself were cooperating. A normal punch was like a car slowly accelerating, always fighting against wind resistance that sapped its speed. This kick was nothing like that. It was as if there were no resistance at all, reaching maximum velocity instantly. That absence of drag caused its power to multiply, turning speed into pure destruction. Ha! Ethan's eyes lit up as realization struck him. There was something eerily familiar about this kick. It shared a core principle with his own self-created slapping technique. His slaps avoided lethal force, concealed killing intent, and shifted unpredictably to leave no opening, but they sacrificed raw power in exchange. This Chilin's kick was the opposite. It stripped away all complexity and subtlety, reducing everything to a single, overwhelming truth. See it or not, it did not matter. The attack was coming, and it would crush whatever stood in its way. There was a certain unmistakable presence to it, a feeling that power alone could override all else. Chapter 894, 81 Strikes. Ethan fixed his gaze on the milky white Chilin's incoming strike, studying every nuance of its movement. In his perception, the attack looked slower than before, almost restrained, yet in the very next instant it was already upon him, crossing the distance in a flash that defied common sense. He wanted to imitate it, to seize that fleeting insight and reproduce it in his own body, but there was no time for that. The moment was already gone. So he abandoned analysis and moved on instinct alone, attacking the only way he truly knew how. A thunderous boom erupted as Ethan's fist collided with the Chilin's hoof. The impact detonated into a violent shockwave that blasted outward in all directions, ripping through the air like a living thing. The 7 angels hovering above felt their hair whip wildly as the surge slammed into them, while farther back, the so-called dark web experts were thrown completely off balance. Most of them rolled across the ground like scattered gourds, and several of the weaker ones spat mouthfuls of blood onto the ice, their faces twisted in pain. This was just the shockwave from a single clash, nothing more, yet it shattered whatever confidence they had left. These were fighters who once believed themselves elite, and now all they could think was the same stunned question. What the hell were these things? Monsters. The white Chilin alone was already terrifying, but the real target of their assassination was even more absurd. In that moment, countless curses were silently directed at the dark web that had dragged them into this nightmare. Ethan, after colliding head-on with the white Chilin, only stepped back half a step. That single exchange told him everything he needed to know. The Chilin's power was no longer crushing in the way it had been before. It was still immense, but it no longer felt insurmountable. The trial itself offered no instructions, no hints, no explanation of how it was meant to be passed. All Ethan had was memory. Last time, he had endured 2 moves and been blasted away on the 3rd, only to wake up soaking in that strange white liquid. He had no idea whether that had been a reward or just some arbitrary consequence, but if it truly counted as one, then the conclusion was obvious. Defeating this white Chilin should mean the end of the trial. The Chilin did not give him time to dwell on it. The second attack came immediately, another front hoof swinging toward him. Ethan met it head-on again, fist against hoof, repeating the same clash as before. Another massive shockwave exploded outward, even more violent than the last. Again, someone screamed from the distance. The dark web operatives were already at their limit. One man, blood trailing from the corner of his mouth, wore an expression of utter despair. The previous shockwave had injured him badly, and if this continued wave after wave, he knew he would be shaken to death without ever being touched directly. Panic overtook reason. He turned and ran, but he barely made it 3 steps before the next shockwave caught him. It slammed into the backs of everyone who had shared the same thought. A wet, explosive sound followed as countless people sprayed blood almost simultaneously. Even the angels floating high above were pushed back, drifting nearly an inch through the air. The only ones completely unaffected were the children sealed safely inside the purple-gold barrier. And this was only the beginning. The white Chilin twisted its massive body, turning its back to Ethan as it raised a hind leg. The posture was unmistakable. Same damn move, Ethan roared. This was the kick that had sent him flying last time, the one that had overwhelmed him completely. Now, instead of fear, his entire body burned with heat and excitement, like he had just finished warming up and was finally ready. He brought both fists together overhead and smashed downward as the Chilin's hoof arced up from below. The two forces met head-on. A sharp crack rang out. The Chilin's leg was driven straight back into the ice, and fine fractures spread across the milky white surface beneath it. Yet Ethan did not allow himself to relax. Even as he pressed the attack, part of his attention remained fixed on the feathered figures above, always prepared for a sudden ambush. But they did not move at all. The next moment, Ethan no longer had the luxury of watching them. The Chilin charged, throwing its entire body forward in a brutal slam, like an iron mountain rushing to crush everything in its path. Boom after boom echoed across the frozen lake as the two collided again and again. The explosions did not stop, and through it all, Ethan held his ground. Even the children inside the purple-gold shield stared with mouths hanging open, unable to look away. Ethan versus the white Chilin was less a battle and more a series of planetary collisions. Each impact forced Ethan back under sheer force alone, yet the Chilin could not land a decisive blow either. No matter how many times it struck him, he kept coming back, relentless and stubborn, like a cockroach that simply refused to die. The exchange continued for who knew how long. To everyone else watching, it was a display of terrifying strength. Only Ethan knew how miserable it truly felt. With every collision, his chest tightened further, his breathing growing heavier as his bones and muscles felt like they were being hammered into shape over and over again. A maddening itch spread throughout his body, deep and unbearable, as if something inside him was being forced to change. As for the dark web operatives, only those who had tried to flee from the shockwaves had been shaken to death. The rest had done something far smarter. They had repositioned themselves outside the purple-gold barrier, diagonally across from Ethan. The shockwaves struck the shield directly, and on the far side of it, there was a strange dead zone where the impact simply vanished. That spot was the safest place in the entire battlefield. These people, who once believed themselves untouchable, could now only stare in silent shock at the fight unfolding before them. 73, 74, 75, 76. Inside the barrier, the big black dog stared intently at Ethan, muttering numbers under its breath as if counting something important. "What are you doing?" Luna asked, standing right beside him after hearing the strange muttering. The dog ignored her completely. 79, 80. Boom. The instant he reached 80, Ethan and the white Chilin collided once more. This time, Ethan manifested both his bear form and his panther form behind him, his movements accompanied by deafening sonic booms. It was maximum speed and maximum impact, everything he had poured into a single clash. The collision landed heavily, followed by a dull, rolling thunder. Then Ethan stumbled forward. He lost his balance, unable to stop his momentum, pitching toward the ground as his eyes widened in disbelief. Behind him, the white Chilin burst apart, its body dissolving into a spray of milky white liquid that scattered across the ice. The big black dog finally grinned. Knew it. 81 strikes. The peak of 9. The Chilins remained splashed over the frozen surface, and Ethan felt the ground beneath his feet soften. The ice, battered and cracked yet stubbornly intact through the entire fight, suddenly lost all solidity. It turned to liquid without warning. Ethan tried to leap away, but it was too late. His feet were already submerged, and a powerful force seized him, dragging him downward. The pull of the white liquid was stronger than the Chilin itself, yanking him below the surface with terrifying speed. "Brother! Master!" the children screamed, their faces pale with fear as Ethan struggled briefly before vanishing entirely. He sank without a splash, without even a ripple disturbing the surface. No matter how he fought, his body was pulled relentlessly toward the depths of the lake. Great. I beat the thing and now I'm going to drown. The thought was pure frustration. He inhaled. The white liquid flooded into his lungs. Yet he did not choke. There was no suffocation nor pain. The liquid tasted smooth and rich, strangely pleasant. With every breath, more flowed into him, and still his body accepted it without resistance. Instead of panic, a sense of clarity spread through him, as though his entire being had become lighter, freer, and more fluid. Felt like stepping into an entirely new world. This milky white liquid could replace oxygen, just like the life water inside the cockpit of the Shatterstar. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.